Terry hasn't seen the awful video of Steve's death by Stingray and says it'll never be televised. Terry and the kids were on a research trip when she got the call from her brother-in-law.
It is reported that there were between 14 and 17 CCTV cameras in and around the tunnel, yet none of them captured the crash itself.
Do you know what happened on June 4th, 1989 in China?
没有听说过。
就是1989年6月4号，我们国家发生过什么事情吗
？86年。
89年。
89年，那不洪水吗？
No, I resent your tone, lady, okay? You know, this was a tragic accident. It's a tragic accident. Don't try and put yourself in the spotlight here, okay?
Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
September 4th, 2006. Steve Irwin was filming a documentary titled Ocean's Deadliest at the Great Barrier Reef. The project aimed to showcase some of the most dangerous creatures in the sea, and Irwin was in his element, exploring the underwater world with his characteristic zeal. On that fateful day, Irwin and his crew were filming in the shallow waters at Bat Reef, off the coast of Port Douglas, Queensland. The team had already captured footage of various marine animals, but had taken a break due to bad weather. While his co-host Felipe Costello was away, Steve Irwin decided to film some extra footage, a segment on stingrays, for his daughter Bindi's television show.
Join Croc Hunter Steve Irwin's daughter Bindi on her amazing adventures.
Who's going to answer the call of the wild? That's me! Bindi the Jungle Girl. Yes.
He and his team set out on a relatively routine dive, aiming to capture some beautiful underwater shots of stingrays. Stingrays are generally docile creatures, and Irwin had interacted with them numerous times before. However, this encounter would be tragically different. Irwin and his crew, including experienced cameraman Justin Lyons, approached a massive 8-foot-wide stingray. These creatures, though armed with venomous barbs, rarely attack humans unless they feel threatened. The plan was simple: capture close-up shots of the stingray swimming peacefully, and perhaps film Irwin delivering one of his signature on-the-spot animal education pieces. As the cameras rolled, Irwin swam above the stingray, hoping to get a closer look for the viewers. There was no expectation of danger. After all, Irwin had handled much more dangerous animals throughout his career. Yet, in the blink of an eye, the situation spiraled into a deadly confrontation. In a sudden and unexpected twist, without warning, it lashed out with its tail, striking Irwin multiple times, delivering a fatal blow to Irwin's chest. The attack was swift and unexpected, leaving Irwin and his crew in shock. Cameraman Justin Lyons, who was filming the encounter, later recounted the harrowing moments. Lyons described it as 100 strikes in a few seconds, a relentless flurry that left no time for defense or escape.
Well, I had the camera on, I thought this is going to be a great shot, it's going to be in the doco for sure, fantastic. And all of a sudden it propped on its front and started stabbing wildly with its tail. Hundreds of strikes in a few seconds. It probably thought that Steve's shadow was a tiger shark, which feeds on them very regularly. And so it started to attack him. I panned with the camera as the stingray swam away. I didn't even know it had caused any damage. It wasn't until I panned the camera back that Steve was standing in a huge pool of blood that I realised something had gone wrong.
The camera continued rolling, capturing Irwin's visible distress. As Irwin surfaced, clutching his chest, the crew acted swiftly, pulling Irwin onto their boat and performing CPR as they raced to shore. But it was already too late. Irwin's injuries were catastrophic. The stingray's barbs had punctured his heart, and despite desperate attempts to save him, he succumbed to his wounds before they could reach medical help. In his final moments, Lyons and the crew encouraged Irwin to keep fighting, but he was unfortunately aware of the severity of the attack. His last words, captured by Lyons, were heart-wrenching. "I'm dying," was the last thing he said. The footage recorded the entire event that happened on that fateful day and documents one of television's most shocking and tragic moments. Irwin had ordered all his teams to film everything that happened regardless of the dire situation. The footage of Steve Irwin's fatal encounter with the stingray has become one of the most infamous pieces of lost media in modern history. The existence of this footage has been the subject of much speculation and intrigue, with many wondering what exactly it shows and why it has never been released to the public. Immediately following Irwin's death, the footage was handed over to the authorities for investigation. The Queensland Police Service reviewed the tape as part of their inquiry into the accident. According to reports, the footage was graphic and disturbing, capturing the moments leading up to the attack itself, and the aftermath. The video showed Irwin swimming alongside the stingray, the sudden strike, and the frantic efforts to save him. Only a handful of people have seen the tape, including Justin Lyons, who was deeply affected by witnessing Irwin's final moments.
Best mate and me right-hand man, Justin.
After the investigation was concluded, the authorities decided to destroy all copies of the footage except for one. The decision not to release the footage was made out of respect for Irwin's family and his legacy. The final copy was given to Irwin's widow, Terry Irwin. Terry has since stated that she has never watched the footage and has no intention of releasing it. In interviews, she expressed her desire to protect her husband's legacy and spare their children, Bindi and Robert, from the trauma of seeing their father's final moments. The decision to keep the footage private has been respected by most, but it has also fueled curiosity and speculation. Some believe that the footage could provide valuable insights into the behavior of stingrays and the circumstances of Irwin's death. Others argue that releasing the footage would be a violation of Irwin's privacy and dignity. Despite the footage of it never actually being released, some people are often convinced they've watched a video of Steve Irwin's death. However, the video that many people remember seeing was not the real tape, as it has never been shared. Irwin's wife, Terry, told You magazine in 2018 that a fake video was circulated, pretending it was that of Irwin's death. The last remaining footage is said to either be destroyed by Steve Irwin's wife or locked in a vault, never to see the light of day. On the night of August 30th, 1997, Princess Diana and her companion, Dodi Fayed, were in Paris. They had spent the evening at the Ritz Hotel, owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al Fayed. They had planned to leave the hotel discreetly to avoid the paparazzi who had been relentlessly following them throughout their stay. Henry Paul, the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel, was assigned to drive them in a black Mercedes-Benz S280. Alongside them was Trevor Rhys-Jones, the bodyguard. At around 12:20 a.m., they left the hotel. What transpired next would end in a tragedy. The plan was to evade the paparazzi by using a decoy car at the front entrance of the Ritz Hotel, while the real car carrying Diana and Dodi would leave from the rear. Despite these precautions, the paparazzi quickly caught on and pursued the Mercedes that they were in. As the car sped away from the hotel, it was followed by paparazzi on motorcycles. According to the official narrative, Henry Paul, the driver, was said to be under the influence of alcohol and driving at high speeds through Paris to evade the photographers. At approximately 12:23 a.m. on August 31st, the Mercedes entered the Pointe de Alma tunnel at high speeds estimated between 60 to 70 miles per hour, significantly faster than the legal limit. Henry Paul lost control of the vehicle, swerving and crashing into the 13th pillar of the tunnel. The impact was devastating. Dodi Fayed and Henry Paul were killed instantly. Trevor Rhys-Jones, the bodyguard, was the only survivor, albeit with severe injuries, while Princess Diana was alive and conscious but critically injured. However, Princess Diana would later succumb to her injuries a few hours later at the hospital she was taken to. One of the most perplexing aspects of the crash is the missing footage from the CCTV cameras in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. It is reported that there were between 14 and 17 CCTV cameras in and around the tunnel, yet none of them captured the crash itself. This has led to numerous conspiracy theories and speculations about what really happened that night. The Pont de Alma Tunnel is a busy thoroughfare in Paris and is equipped with multiple CCTV cameras for traffic monitoring and security purposes. On the night of the crash, these cameras should have provided a clear view of the events leading up to and including the crash. However, French authorities and the official investigation provided a number of explanations for the missing footage. According to their reports, the cameras in the tunnel were not functioning properly at the time of the crash. It was claimed that many of these cameras were not designed to monitor the inside of the tunnel itself, but were positioned primarily to monitor traffic flow on the roads leading up to and around the tunnel. Additionally, it was explained that the cameras that did cover parts of the tunnel were either not recording or malfunctioning at the critical moments. Some reports stated that the cameras inside the tunnel were not set up for continuous recording, but rather for live traffic monitoring purposes, meaning there will be no archived footage available for review. This explanation has been met with skepticism, particularly given the high-profile nature of the area and the importance of surveillance in a major metropolitan city like Paris. Furthermore, the tunnel was a key part of the route connecting the central Paris with the city's western suburbs, raising doubts about why such a critical part of the city's infrastructure would lack basic surveillance capabilities. Adding to the mystery surrounding the crash are the conflicting accounts given by the paparazzi who were following Diana's car. As Diana lay in the wrecked car, a group of paparazzi who had been chasing her vehicle swarmed the scene. Instead of helping the victims or calling for emergency services, they were reportedly busy taking photographs and filming. Some of these images were later published, but the video footage captured by the paparazzi has largely been kept out of the public eye. French police reportedly seized some of the cameras and film from the paparazzi at the scene, but what happened to this evidence afterward is unclear. Several of them were arrested at the scene, but their stories about the moments leading up to the crash were inconsistent. Some claimed to have seen the car speeding, while others denied that they were directly responsible for pressuring the driver to go faster. Critics argue that the paparazzi's role in the crash has been exaggerated, and the focus on them diverts attention from more significant questions, such as the missing footage from the CCTV cameras. Despite their proximity to the crash, none of the photographers were able to provide any clear visual evidence of the incident itself, further muddying the waters. Was it simply stored away and forgotten, or was it intentionally withheld due to its graphic and sensitive nature? The public was left wondering just how much of the crash and its immediate aftermath had been caught on camera. The disappearance or failure of the CCTV cameras has left a significant gap in the timeline of events leading up to Diana's death. One of the most puzzling aspects of the case is that while French authorities claim the cameras were not functioning, other surveillance footage from earlier that night, such as outside the Ritz Hotel, was captured and made available. Why, then, was there no footage from the tunnel, a vital location during the couple's journey? The discrepancy has led to rampant speculation and conspiracy theories. Some believe that the cameras were deliberately turned off, tampered with, or destroyed to cover the true cause of the crash and hide evidence of foul play. Others believe that the footage exists but has been withheld from the public for reasons unknown. Moreover, questions have been raised about the involvement of the intelligence services. Given Diana's high-profile status and her strained relationship with the British royal family at the time of her death, conspiracy theorists have suggested that the British or French intelligence agencies may have been monitoring her. If this were the case, would they have had access to additional surveillance footage that was not made public? The absence of the CCTV footage from the tunnel on the night of Princess Diana's death is one of the most significant and perplexing aspects of the tragedy. Over the years, numerous investigations have tried to piece together what happened, but the gap in the surveillance footage has left an indelible mystery. While the official explanation focuses on technical failures and the limitations of the cameras, the lack of recorded evidence from such a heavily surveilled area has only fueled speculation about the true cause of the crash. For those seeking closure or definitive answers, the missing footage remains a frustrating and crucial missing piece of the puzzle. In the spring of 1989, Beijing's Tiananmen Square became the epicenter of a growing pro-democracy movement. Thousands of students, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens gathered to demand political reform, freedom of speech, and an end to corruption. The atmosphere was initially hopeful and peaceful, with demonstrators erecting a makeshift goddess of democracy statue, symbolizing their aspirations for a more open society. However, the Chinese government viewed these protests as a direct challenge to its authority. As the weeks dragged on, tensions escalated. The government declared martial law, and troops from the People's Liberation Army were mobilized to suppress the protests. By early June, the situation had reached a boiling point. In the weeks leading up to the massacre, Tiananmen Square had transformed into a symbol of hope and defiance. The protests, initially started by university students mourning the death of pro-reform official named Hu Yaobang, evolved into a broader call for democracy, freedom of the press, and government transparency. The Chinese Communist Party, under Deng Xiaoping, had overseen a period of rapid economic change, but political reforms lagged behind. The student demonstrators believed that China was at a crossroads. Either it would open up to the world and embrace democracy, or the government would crush any calls for change. By late May, the square was a site of constant activity. Thousands of students gathered daily, building makeshift shelters, singing revolutionary songs, and carrying banners that advocated for freedom and government reform. International media outlets had flooded Beijing to cover the story, broadcasting images of this unprecedented movement. The world's attention was on Tiananmen, and many hoped that change was within reach. However, as the weeks passed, the Chinese government's patience wore thin. The increasing number of protesters, bolstered by public support and attention from the international media, deeply unnerved party officials. By May 20th, martial law had been declared in parts of Beijing, but even this did not deter the students. They remained in the square, emboldened by the belief that the government would not dare use violence under the watchful eye of the world. But as history now remembers, their belief in restraint would prove tragically misguided. On the night of June 3, 1989, the People's Liberation Army began its assault on Tiananmen Square. Armed with rifles, tanks, and tear gas, the soldiers advanced towards the square, firing indiscriminately into the crowd. The protesters, many of whom were young students, were unprepared for the brutal crackdown. Chaos ensued as people scrambled to escape the onslaught, but the military's advance was relentless. The official narrative from the Chinese authorities described their actions as necessary to restore order, but the accounts from survivors tell a story of chaos and unimaginable brutality. The military fired live ammunition into the crowds, and tanks rolled forward, crushing anyone in their path. Some protesters attempted to flee, while others desperately tried to reason with the soldiers. But as the night wore on, it became clear that any notion of peaceful resolution had evaporated. Eyewitness accounts described scenes of unimaginable horror. Bodies littered the streets, and the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. Despite the overwhelming force used against them, some protesters fought back, hurling rocks and Molotov cocktails at the advancing troops. The violence continued into the early hours of June 4th, leaving an indelible mark on those who witnessed it. Most of the footage that survives today comes from news cameras that were hastily set up before the government shut down the flow of information. Journalists captured scenes of the military moving in, of protesters bravely confronting the tanks, and of the chaos that ensued as people scattered under gunfire. Yet, despite the many cameras present, there are significant gaps in the visual record of what truly happened that night. Key moments remain unseen, obscured by censorship, government confiscation, or fear of reprisal. With the imposition of martial law, the Chinese government cut off Western broadcasters' satellite transmissions such as CNN and the CBS. During the military action, some foreign journalists faced harassment from authorities. Several foreign journalists who had covered the crackdown were expelled in the weeks that followed, while others were harassed by authorities or blacklisted from re-entering the country. Some were reportedly beaten. CNN was one of the few international news organizations that managed to broadcast live from Tiananmen Square during the crackdown. The coverage provided the world with a real-time account of the violence, but much of the footage was heavily censored or confiscated by the Chinese authorities. Despite these challenges, CNN's reporters managed to capture some of the most iconic images of the massacre, including the infamous Tank Man standoff. This footage has since become a symbol of resistance and the fight for democracy, but many other recordings from that night remains lost or hidden. But according to some reports, there was a single angle of this encounter taken from the opposite side of the street, which supposedly shows what happened to the tank man after he was dragged away. Some Western outlets withheld certain images from viewers. So, how did such a huge event that had live broadcasts have footages that got lost or never released? To this day, it is widely acknowledged that much of the footage from the Tiananmen Square massacre was deliberately destroyed or hidden. The Chinese government quickly moved to censor any evidence of the violence, rounding up journalists, seizing film, and shutting down news outlets. This lost footage represents not only missing moments of the massacre, but missing truths, fragments of history that could reshape our understanding of those fateful hours. One of the most significant pieces of lost footage comes from an American news crew who had been embedded in the Beijing to cover the protests. The crew reportedly captured vivid scenes of soldiers firing directly into the crowds and close-ups of protesters being shot at point-blank range. However, before they could broadcast or smuggle the footage out of the country, Chinese authorities seized the tapes. Despite diplomatic pressure, the footages have never been recovered, leaving crucial details of the massacre shrouded in mystery. There are also countless stories from individual bystanders, civilians who recorded the massacre on personal cameras or even early camcorders. In the immediate aftermath, many of those devices were confiscated during house-to-house searches. Some footage may have been destroyed on the spot, while other tapes may still exist, hidden away in secret or long forgotten. The Chinese government was relentless in its efforts to control the narrative, and the scale of their confiscation campaign left little room for dissenting voices to document what truly happened. Moreover, a small number of eyewitnesses spoke of the sheer brutality of what actually happened that day, describing scenes that show atrocities far worse than what has been seen in the available footage. There are reports of tanks driving over fleeing protesters, of soldiers executing students who surrendered, and bodies being dumped into trucks to be disposed of in mass. These lost footages remain one of the greatest gaps in the public's understanding of the true depth of the massacre. Despite the efforts of the Chinese authorities, some journalists and civilians managed to smuggle out recordings of the massacre. In the immediate aftermath, several harrowing videos of the attack were aired on international networks, showing tanks running over protesters, soldiers opening fire into the crowds, and the sheer panic that engulfed Tiananmen Square. While much of the footage was destroyed or hidden, some clips have resurfaced in the years since the massacre. These smuggled videos provide fleeting glimpses of the lost footage, but even these tapes are thought to be incomplete. It is believed that several people, both foreign and local, were able to record far more detailed footage of the night's events than what has been broadcasted. One such clip, reportedly smuggled out of China by a diplomat, shows a group of students trying to shield themselves from gunfire with metal barricades. The camera shakes violently as gunshots ring out, and the video cuts to black just as soldiers appear to close in on the students. This footage, although incomplete, is one of the rare surviving recordings that show the massacre in progress from the perspective of the protesters. Other fragments have appeared online over the years. However, much of the footage remains elusive, often quickly removed due to fear of government retaliation. These short clips show scenes of carnage that the official narrative has long denied. Piles of bodies in the streets, civilians rushing to carry the wounded, and soldiers dragging away those who resisted. While these clips provide invaluable insight into the horrors of the massacre, they are only fragments of the larger whole, tiny windows into the broader reality of the Tiananmen Square massacre. However, the smuggling process was perilous, and many who attempted to flee China with the recordings were arrested at the border or went missing entirely. Their tapes, if they existed, were never seen again. In the years since the massacre, numerous reports have surfaced about journalists and documentarians who disappeared during the crackdown. Some of these individuals were known to have been filming up until the last moment of the military's assault, leading to speculations that they were detained or even killed to prevent the footage from reaching the outside world. These missing journalists represent another layer of lost documentation, as their work remains either unrecovered or suppressed. In one case, a French filmmaker who had been documenting the protesters' daily lives was last seen filming on the outskirts of the square as the military closed in. His whereabouts remain unknown, and no trace of his footage has ever been found. The Chinese government has gone to great lengths to suppress information about the massacre, making it difficult for researchers and journalists to uncover the full extent of what happened. Even as international outcry mounted following the event, China worked swiftly to ensure that any domestic footage of the massacre would never see the light of day. In the immediate aftermath, state-run media quickly suppressed coverage of the violence, instead broadcasting images of soldiers clearing the square of the hooligans and counter-revolutionaries. In the years that followed, the Chinese government enacted a strict censorship policy surrounding the events of June 4th, making it illegal to discuss or share information about the massacre. Even to this day, references to the event are systematically erased from the Chinese internet, and those who attempt to share footage or information are subject to arrests. What's more chilling is the possibility that some of the lost footage may still exist, locked away in state-controlled archives. This includes not only confiscated footage from foreign journalists, but also video recordings from military and surveillance cameras stationed around Beijing that night. These recordings, which would provide a more comprehensive view of the crackdown, remain inaccessible to the public. Despite these challenges, the search of the lost footage continues, driven by the belief that the truth must be preserved and remembered. On the 23rd of May 1999, at the World Wrestling Federation's Over the Edge pay-per-view event at the Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri, Owen Hart, a beloved wrestler, was set to perform as his comedic superhero alter ego persona, the Blue Blazer. Hart was set to descend from the rafters of Kansas City's Kemper Arena into the ring using a harness and a grapple, in a parody of the stunt previously performed by other wrestling superstars like Shawn Michaels. However, this time, the stunt was meant to add a more comedic twist. The plan was for Owen to awkwardly fumble the release and then tumble ungracefully into the ring as part of the act. The rigging was designed to be different from the traditional methods, using a quick release mechanism that could easily detach with a pull, allowing Owen to quickly unhook himself once he reached the ring. As the show progressed, the moment for Owen Hart's entrance arrived. The arena lights dimmed, and a pre-recorded promo played on the screens, distracting the audience from what was happening above. Owen Hart was being prepared for his descent. As Owen Hart was suspended high above the ring, ready to descend as the Blue Blazer, something went catastrophically wrong. The quick release mechanism activated prematurely, sending Owen plummeting nearly 80 feet from the rafters. He landed chest first on the top rope near one of the ring's turnbuckles before collapsing into the ring itself. The impact was devastating, causing severe internal injuries that would prove fatal within minutes. The fall happened so quickly and unexpectedly that many in the audience weren't even sure what they had just witnessed. Some of the audience, initially unaware of the gravity of the situation, thought it was part of the show. To add to the confusion, a pre-recorded promo featuring Hart in character as the Blue Blazer was playing in the arena's big screen at the time of the fall, meaning that the television audience didn't see Owen's descent. By the time the cameras cut back to the live feed, the scene in the arena had drastically changed. However, the reaction of the commentators and the immediate halt of the event signaled that something had gone terribly wrong. Medical personnel rushed to the ring and the broadcaster cut to the backstage area. Jim Ross, one of the commentators, informed the viewers that this was not part of the storyline and that a serious accident had occurred. Owen Hart was rushed to the Truman Medical Center, but despite the efforts of the medical team, he was pronounced dead. The cause of death was later determined to be internal bleeding from the blunt force trauma. The following night on Raw, A tribute show was held in Owen Hart's honor, with wrestlers sharing their memories and paying their respects. One of the most haunting aspects of Owen Hart's death is that the entire ordeal was captured on camera but has never been seen by the public. Although millions of people were watching the events live, Owen Hart's fatal fall was never shown on camera. At the time of the incident, the live television feed was showing a pre-recorded segment, and the producers were quick to ensure that the cameras never directly captured the aftermath of the fall. In the world of live television, especially during high-octane events like wrestling pay-per-views, directors and producers are trained to manage the narrative, cutting away from anything that might disrupt the show or cause undue distress to the audience. However, despite this swift action, the incident was indeed captured on multiple cameras that were filming the event circle. WWE executives, including Vince McMahon, made the decision to withhold the footage from the broadcast, and it has remained locked away ever since. There are several reasons why this decision was made. First and foremost is the sensitivity of the situation. Owen Hart's death was a tragic accident, and the footage of his final moments would be deeply distressing not only to his family, but to fans and the viewers around the world. Releasing such footage would serve no purpose other than to sensationalize the tragedy and cause unnecessary pain. Furthermore, the release of the footage could have led to severe legal repercussions for WWE. Owen's widow Martha Hart filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the company following the incident, claiming that the stunt was poorly planned and the proper safety measures were not in place. The footage of the accident could potentially have been used as evidence in the lawsuit, and releasing it to the public could have influenced public opinion and the outcome of the case. Over the years, following Owen Hart's tragic death, rumors have circulated regarding the existence of the supposed footage that shows his fatal fall. Despite WWE's official stance that no footage of the accident was ever broadcasted and that it remains locked away, many people have claimed to have seen the footage of the incident. These claims often fall into two categories: those who believe they saw the fall live during the pay-per-view broadcast, and those who claim to have seen leaked footage online. Some viewers of the Over the Edge event in 1999 insist they saw Owen Hart's fall live on television. However, these claims are largely attributed to false memories. During the actual broadcast, a pre-recorded promo was playing, and the cameras did not capture the fall live. The broadcast cut to commentators and the crowd, avoiding any direct footage of the incident. There are also claims that fan-recorded footage of the fall was leaked online shortly after the incident. These accounts describe grainy, brief clips that purportedly show the fall from a distance. However, the plausibility of these claims is questionable. Handheld cameras were difficult to smuggle into the event at that time, and any such footage would likely have been confiscated. Additionally, no verifiable evidence of such footage has surfaced, and many supposed clips have been debunked as unrelated or fabricated. Some of the alleged footage is simply edited clips from unrelated wrestling stunts or accidents, modified to look like the Hart incident. In other cases, people spread fabricated stories about dark web links or hidden video files that no one could verify. The WWE was incredibly quick to ensure that any potential footage from their production cameras was never made public. And given the event's handling, it's almost certain that no genuine footage has ever been released or leaked. The actual footage of the incident may likely never see the light of day.